On today's episode, we have a very special guest, former DeSoto City Councilwoman, the Honorable Nicole Raphiel. Nicole's journey reminds us just how important civic engagement is to communities like ours here in DeSoto. Her path to serving others has always been guided by a spirit of grace, showing us that true leadership isn't just about policy, it's about the people. She's been a strong advocate, a dedicated public servant, and a voice for bringing residents together to shape the future of our city. So sit back, lock in, and help me welcome the Honorable Nicole Raphiel. Thank you for joining us. So one thing that we do here at more than 2 minutes is we celebrate the people who need to be celebrated. And by doing that, I wrote a poem, and I like to give it as a gift to each one of the guests that comes in. Now, the last time I did this, people were saying, hey, so you said you were giving a gift. You said what type of gift it was, but since it was a poem, we didn't get a chance to hear it. So what I'm going to do is read this to you.
Okay, thank you.
So everyone out there can see exactly what I'm saying to you. So you deserve your flowers today. You deserve your flowers today, not for the finish line, but for taking the first step, for daring to dream when doubt whispered no, for standing tall when the world tried to bend you low. The moment you chose to move, that was the bloom. You deserve your flowers today for the quiet battles no one else sees, the mornings you rose without applause, the nights you stayed up building your one day. Each breath a petal, each heartbeat a reason. You deserve your flowers today because showing up is sacred, and your voice, unfiltered, full of fire, reminds the world that stories still matter, and that light lives in those who keep walking. You deserve your flowers today, not for perfection, but for presence, for pausing to laugh, to cry, to try again, for blooming right where you're planted. And when the soil felt unsure, you deserve your flowers today, for chasing the dream that calls you by name, for walking paths that only your feet could find, for letting the moment matter, not just a milestone, because this is living and you're doing it beautifully. So God provides you with this because your path serving the city as a councilwoman, I think it is it is something to be recognized and something to be appreciated because it's not easy. And the challenges that you endured and the things you tried to do, or actually the things you accomplished for the city, that's why I think definitely you are one of those individuals. You definitely deserve your flowers. So thanks for jumping on more than 2 minutes. And so we're going to it.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. So I appreciate the flowers now on this side of heaven. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So wow. I've been knowing you for a couple of years now. I think 2-3 years. And when I first met you, I know that I was like quiet, but you were a little quiet yourself. And so when two quiet folks get into a room, there's a lot of silence, but there's a lot of room to have a conversation.
That's right.
And I think over that course of time, we've definitely had those conversations. But I think what I really want to do is get people to understand and know the Nicole Raphiel that I've come to know. Because when you're sitting on the dais and when you're doing the business of the people, and you're serving the city, there's a lot about you as the person that gets lost because they see you as the councilwoman. So let's take a few steps back, and let's talk about where did you come from? Where were you born and raised?
Wow, born and raised. So in Dallas, Texas.
Okay, Dallas.
A lot of people are not from here. So when you say you're from here, it's like, oh, wow. And so Dallas, Texas, born and raised, started out 75216. Oak Cliff.
That's my hood.
Started out there with my mom and family, and then migrated to Pleasant Grove. And then life happened, transitioned into young adulthood.
Yeah.
And then that transition moved into the Oakland area, from Oakland to West Oak Cliff. I didn't know it was West Oak Cliff. West Oak Cliff. And then from there, migrated to DeSoto, Texas. And so Dallas is home for me. My family is from Louisiana. They migrated here
What part of Louisiana?
Monroe.
Monroe.
Monroe,
Okay,
Louisiana.
That's country, isn't it?
Yeah, that's country.
Okay.
That's country. And so, yeah, so this is home.
All right. How long you been living in DeSoto?
Since 1997.
1997.
Since 1997.
Okay. And so you grew up in South Oak Cliff, 216, of course. And so you went to what elementary school did you go to?
Wow, W.W. Bushman.
W.W. Bushman.
W.W. Bushman.
Okay, you were in the middle of the South of South Oak Cliff, right?
The real South Oak Cliff. The real.
Okay.
Yep. So from there to Jumbie Hood is Piedmont Academy. Today we didn't know it was a Confederate name then, but I'm glad they changed the name. And then from John Island to Jumbie Hood to Business Management Center.
Okay.
So I finished high school at BMC is what we called it. It was downtown. So the old Crozier Tech building.
Yeah.
I think Wills and Perkins owns it today. It's a historical site, beautiful building. And from there it was, the traditional junior college, El Centro, UT Dallas.
Okay.
And all my kids went to school with me. And so I was a young mom, family. My husband at the time had started his business, was, in his industry, but then started his own business. And so in that space of time, started the family while going to school. So that's why I said, everybody went to school with me. My baby graduate with me. I think he was born a few days after I walked across the stage.
Okay, so let's go back to business.
Sure.
Because
Okay.
both of my sisters went to business back.
Okay.
And then I had one sister who went to El Centro. Okay, so how was high school, Nicole? I know it's got some great stories about, going
Wow, high school Nicole. Oh, that's a throwback because I think I won't say how many decades now, but how many decades ago? So high school Nicole was, I had a choice between going to Arts Magnet or BMC. And BMC for me was supposed to have been, you have your little, not majors, but your clusters. And so my cluster was supposed to have been fashion. So I was excited about that. So the first day of school, they said, oh, yeah, we got rid of that. I'm like, okay. So then I had to just do regular business stuff. So I did the regular business stuff. And then, I was like, oh, no, I should have gone to Arts Magnet because I played cello at the time.
Okay.
And so anyway, high school Nicole, was focused. I did my thing, was always unique.
Yeah.
And always had my own ideas, of course.
Okay.
And you said quiet, I say contemplative.
That's it.
And, just even when I think about today being in local government, while there, I met John Wiley Price came to my school campaigning. Royce West came to my school campaigning.
Really?
Interesting. Really? So they came to my school back then. Okay. And they're still in office today. So yeah, I got a chance to see, Dallas transition and change and, going to school downtown was really cool, because I got a chance to ride the city bus.
Ooh, the city bus. Now, see, this is one thing, because my daughter, she goes to an art school, right? And so she was telling me that one thing that she didn't realize at the time going into that type of environment is missing homecoming, missing going to Friday night lights.
You don't miss what you don't know. So I didn't know football. I didn't know home, all those type of things. Yeah. For us, our mascot was a business suit and a briefcase. And we were proud about it. So, we walked with our little briefcases and our business suits. So, no, I didn't miss that at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Cool. So you left Business Magnet, you went to El Centro. But what you major in?
Business administration. Business administration. Business.
You were out to make money from the very beginning.
So that was the entrepreneurial side, right?
Right.
But very much had the creative side, so kind of merging those two things a little bit in some of the creative things I got to do, outside of school was fun. And so, Yeah.
Any childhood memories that, you still, sometimes you just wake up and you laugh or, maybe, you see something that your kids are doing and it takes you back and you just have to chuckle?
Childhood memories that I have to chuckle about.
Because I don't think that you were the type to get kicked out of school, right?
No, of course not.
Okay,
of course not.
Okay, all right.
No. One of my childhood memories was, and this comes to mind only because of just talking to friends who may be struggling with their young people or young adults that's different from them. And so I would have these epiphanies. And so I would go and stand at my mom's door, so being contemplative and thinking a lot, right? I would stand at her door, hold the door. She'll be in her room, maybe in bed or whatever. And I'll just let her know. It's like, I had this brilliant idea. This is what I think about this in the world. This is what I think about that. And she'll just look at me like,
right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. She couldn't support it because that was so different.
Right.
And so, but I appreciated her just kind of listening to me and listening to those times where I just thought it was so important that the world had to stop and I had to hold the door like she couldn't move me, to let her know that I had a thought about this.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of a fun memory. And then, just growing up, Pleasant Grove, just the friends that I had. Fun memories of, being in the cafeteria, doing our own freestyles, making our own music, and just enjoying life. So I have not thought about that in a while. So thank you for that, making me go down that lane.
Did you have a soundtrack that you grew up to?
Ooh, did I have a soundtrack?
Sure.
Well, I was in love with Prince. And
really?
So,
Okay. So Prince was in the 90s. Prince was he was.
I did not understand the song Nikki. I kind of felt like maybe I shouldn't like this. But what is that song really saying? I don't know, but it says Nikki. My nickname.
Yeah.
Prince was my favorite growing up. He was unique, different sound, and so I loved it.
That's cool. That's cool. It's interesting you mentioned Prince. Viv and I, we recently went to the Raphiel Sadiq show at the Majestic Theater, right? And so he told a story about when he auditioned to play for Sheila E. and Prince. And he said that he got the gig, right? He made Sheila E. mad going through the process of getting the gig. But anyway, he got the gig. And so they started doing rehearsals over in Tokyo. And when he was singing Prince's parts, because Prince was so important, he couldn't show up at rehearsal. And so while he was singing the parts, they lowered the music. And then someone said, "You have a beautiful voice." And he turned and he looked and it was Prince. And then the music just came back up.
Wow.
And so, he was over there doing his thing, but he got fired. Him and, two of the cast that he brought on to the tour as well, they all got fired. But this is the funny thing. The way that they fired him, they put a McDonald's application in front of him and just walked out the room. It's like, man, Prince is cold.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah. But he said, he cared. He's like, we're not going to say that you don't have a career anymore, but you're just not going to have one.
Right here.
Yeah. So that was really cool. Yeah, Prince was cool. I didn't listen to a lot of Prince when I was growing up, but then when I got into him, it was like, okay, let me really kind of pay attention.
Yeah, so it was a guitar for me. My granddaddy played guitar, and he had curly hair like Chuck Berry, and he could do that little thing like Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
So I kind of had that in my background, and seeing my granddaddy play the guitar until he became Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
And then it felt like he tried to brainwash us, like, I never played guitar. Like, Granddaddy, no, you did. You did. And so anyway, so I love guitar. Guitar is my youngest son. He's a guitarist today.
Okay.
And so, yeah. So growing up, it was Prince and that guitar.
Okay, cool. Well, the next thing I want to do is get into your journey.
Sure.
Going into civic service. I don't know, is that the right thing to say, civic service?
You can say that.
Okay.
Sure.
Going into civic service. And then I know that there's still, because you're with the business, I know that you got your foot in the door in probably a couple of other industries. And so I think it'd be good to talk about that as well.
Sure.
You went to Business Magnet, and then you went to El Centro. Then you went to UTD, right? And a lot of things going on and everything because you're being educated to enter the business world. So tell me about the first journey outside of the collegiate world once you
first journey outside of collegiate world. Remember I was married at the time, so most of my friends were not married, had not started their families.
Oh, really?
So like I did it all at the same time. School full time, work full time, full children, husband, all that. And so for me, after graduation and after school was just really kind of leaning into motherhood. A series of health things happened with my littles. And so, I had this strong desire to do that. And I felt, kind of God calling me to that. And so with that, my husband at the time, he was supportive. And I continued to support him as he transitioned into the family business or his business.
Right.
And so I supported that from the perspective of, doing the MWMBE, you know, things like that, doing the admin work, doing some of the, you know, pushing, marketing, promoting, but at the same time, you know, leveling that with being a stay-at-home mom. And then, you know, as my children got older, you know, I started to feel the strong call to homeschool.
Okay.
And my oldest did have an experience, you know, in public school and all that. And, you know, during those years, it felt like it was a rush to find the perfect school, you know, so in our friend groups, church groups, small groups, you know, we all had young children. And, you know, the strong prayer was like, hey, you know, what school is my kid going to go to this next year? You know, so as we were moving in different parts of the Dallas area. And so, you know, homeschool became a big part of our life. And so a big part of that experience for my children was a very experiential educational experience.
Wow. Okay.
And so with that, you know, the world became the classroom. But a part of that, what was very important was the volunteerism, being able to give back and then to pour into community. You know, you take from community, but then you also give to community. And so just kind of transitioning to like, you know, I've always had a strong desire, particularly living here in DeSoto, to want to be in local government. And that was born for me from what I was seeing happening in Dallas, you know, in my 20s. You know, I saw, you know, earlier I saw the struggle to 14-1, you know, going to single member districts in the city of Dallas. So Diane Raxdale was the councilwoman at the time, very strong, pushing that charge. I paid attention to, you know, what she had to say in particular, because she worked with my mom. My mother and her worked at the Dallas VA. There were some things going on there that they were very active with, as well as Edward Bernice Johnson is someone my mother worked with at the Dallas VA hospital as well. And so just kind of had in the back of my mind just this activism of the change that needs to happen and that you need to do that. For what I saw my mom do growing up was a lot of volunteering as it relates to health. You know, at that time, it was the explosion of teenage pregnancies, you know, so giving these young girls, you know, the education that they needed from that perspective at the community clinic. Today, they are community health clinics, but it really didn't kind of have that moniker at that time. And so she led the charge, you know, in community doing things like that. And so during the homeschool days, it was kind of more of the, you know, these are the things that we need to do, you know, and so we did my children had a lot of experiences.
It's cool.
Today.
It's cool that motherhood is so much a part of your story, especially being a young mother. And so I want to slow the train down a little bit, kind of hit reverse a little bit and go back to that period of time, because you were a young mother, okay, and you're trying to deal with life and understand where you are in terms of your age, your experience, what you're doing in building your family, protecting your family. So first thing, what type of mother were you?
Wow. I feel like I was a really...
You're still a mom. People back then. So that's first. It's like
when a kid, I get it. I'll go back a little bit. So I grew up with really strong women. My great aunt, she took care of her husband. So this is in the retirement years. He had a stroke. She took care of him. I had another aunt so that was my Uncle Willie, my Uncle Red. He fell ill. That great aunt, she took care of him. So I just saw them do a lot of things. And then my mom, when my granddaddy took ill, because her mom, his wife, died when she was 13. So she would take on the responsibility of being that one, you know, of the kids to take on a lot of responsibilities. And then I saw her go to school full time. I saw her work full time. So I saw her do that. So she got a master's as she was going through her iterations of education, you know, when I was growing up. And so for me, growing up, me staying at home with my kids was like a real different thing. Like, what? You know, so I did feel slight pressure when I was in school because my kids went to school with me too. You know, we were a young family. And so, you know, he was at work, I'm working, going to school. So, you know, I needed that flexibility of taking them with me. And so, you know, it was all the language and the culture, welfare moms and things like that, you know, and I felt a little bit of that pressure, like, well, people have that do I have that identity? That's not my identity.
Right.
But I pressed through it because I felt, again, a strong call from God that this is what I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do it. And then as the years went on and we transitioned into homeschooling, same thing. The women in my family looking at me like, what are you doing? My great aunt, she had houses, she had a beauty shop, she had a laundromat. So very industrious and what are you doing? You doing what? And I'm homeschooling my humans. And so as time went on, what they started to learn was like, wow, you're doing a great job, because they started to see other kids around their same age and some of the struggles that they were having,
right,
in the public school systems and systems that they were in. And, the one thing all my children was very articulate, you know. And so, that's not necessarily a compliment from some people when they say it, but the thing that people would notice, or my family would notice, is that from the time they were littles, they could have conversations with the oldest ones, intelligent conversations with them. And then they had life experiences, and so at some points, I'm pretty sure my kids would say, oh, Mom, you would just look too much. Oh, yeah, Mom, they'll tell me some things now that I'm like, I didn't do that. Yeah, Mom, you did that. I didn't do that. So I was very much the helicopter mom. When it got to doing the curriculum, I went through all the various curriculums, evaluated them, started writing my own. And there was just certain things I wanted to make certain they had experiences with.
Right.
Because I knew, if I can't say anything else, I'll say, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And I just remember growing up, there was a lot I didn't know that I wanted to know in school. And so I wanted to make certain that they had those opportunities and experiences that we couldn't afford with a private school education to put, 3 kids in private school, but to do it ourselves.
You see, I think that's the unique experience of it, because it's kind of like the best of both worlds. The problem that I have with the educational system as it stands today is that your child is away from you and in the care of someone else, providing them with information that they can really, they're going to build philosophy, build concepts, build how they may want to live in the future.
And that's a great point, because one of the things I would always say was, no one loves my child more than I do. And on my worst day, I'll do 10 times better than someone else, but I was afforded that opportunity. It was a decision that we decided to make. It was a financial hit that we decided to make, but it was like, invest here, and then with the business, invest there. So those were choices. But ultimately, my children did have an experience with public school, private school, charter school. They all had, one way or another, those experiences. And I don't take away from those experiences, but I am resoundingly blessed and appreciative that God allowed me the opportunity to have that segment of time in their lives to give that to them. And for me, that was just really important. And so, I don't knock anyone for, what the decisions they have to make.
Right.
I definitely say, as it relates to education, it does still, even in homeschooling, because there are some people who were horrible homeschoolers. They just were. Like, what y'all do today? Oh, yeah, kids just well, that's not the point. And so you had that. You have parents, who could be absentee, whether it's public school, private school, and just have certain expectations. It's still in education. When it comes to young people, it does have to have the very tangible, hands-on, parents have to be very intentional no matter where their children are. You have to be there. So when I first allowed my children to go, 2 of them to go to school here in DeSoto, I'm there like, okay, so tell me, how are you dynamic? That didn't go well with the teacher. They didn't think about it. And at that time in DeSoto, there wasn't an embracing of parents from the outside coming in. It was always the, hey, separation anxiety, you stay over there and then we let us take care of it. I wasn't okay with that. And so, no, give me something to do. So 2 of their teachers allowed me to do a reading group. Well, okay, reading group. So now I'm working with these young ones and I'm like, why is this 3rd grade student not reading well?
Right.
And my children were reading well at 4 and 5. And so it caused me to ask questions. But, when people don't have time or can't, lean into doing the extra work, at home with their own, it gave me, a softer heart for those parents who couldn't. So it gets to the volunteering again. That's why volunteers and people leaning into community, because it takes everybody, right?
Absolutely.
So if somebody else's child is having a problem, mom has to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs,
Yeah.
and whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
It does take the community to come in and say, hey, whether you knew that your child started reading at 4 or 5, okay, well, if you know that and that worked for you, okay, how about you get into the classroom
Right.
and help with these other kids who need that additional assistance? As a mom, I felt like I was a good one. I probably was a little overbearing at times.
That's okay. That's okay.
But when my kids did go to more institutional settings, they never minded me coming. Other kids were like, "Oh, your mom's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, mom." They were okay with it. And then I became everyone else's mom. And so that was fun.
And that's cool. That's very cool. And see, you touched on one thing that I work to talk more about, which is the importance of community. And I say that society is engineered. I went to Texas A&M and I was fortunate enough to get degrees in psychology and sociology. And so one thing that I really have focused on and studied at length is social engineering, how society is engineered. And from that, I came to really understand and appreciate the importance of community. Growing up in Oak Cliff, I would not have been able to survive and get out and do all the things I've been able to do without the community support, without the church's support. One thing that attracted me to DeSoto when I first moved here, that it was small at that time, but it was all about community. And I think because society is engineered and because there are some forces in our society, they want, one group to do much better than other groups, we have to work a little bit harder in focusing on community and saying, okay, here are our little ones. Okay, we might have to do something untraditional, like homeschooling, taking your time away from the corporate environment to give more to the home environment so that you can then give more to the corporate environment because, it recycles.
Yeah.
But if we take our focus off of that, and if all we want to do is party, or if all we want to do is selfish and focus on what our needs and desires are, then it's a little bit easier for society to engineer our destination.
Yeah.
And I'm saying all of this because, you're one of my civic heroes, because you have no problem getting into the fight. You have absolutely no problem getting into the fight. So I really want to talk about that transition going from helicopter mom to civic warrior.
Okay.
As we tighten this part of the next segment.
Okay.
So civic engagement, right? Civic duty. When did you decide that you wanted to be a city council person? Did they start when John Wiley and Wes, when they came to the school and you kind of had inklings of the ideal? Was it, some impression that you received from family members? How far back does this go?
Okay, so for me, as for the public piece, was that growing up, hearing the fight, the different things that was happening inside of Dallas and wanting to get in it.
Okay.
To join into it. And in terms of the whole community care piece for me, and the reason why community was so important was my earliest memory of take care of the community was my granddaddy. So me and my mom would live with my granddaddy, her dad, and he worked at Campbell Target. He had a big red pickup truck.
Really?
And for the days of the thrift store, they would allow employees to take the near expiration date. They would allow them to take the food home. He would start at the end of the street. We would eagerly await, granddaddy coming home.
Okay.
And his truck to the brim with hostess cake, ding dong, stuff, and all the way to the top. And when he get to the end of the road, he would drive real street, and all the kids would run to his truck, so like the ice cream truck.
Okay.
They would run to it, take out what they wanted, and by the time he got home, because we were at the other end of the road, like one house away from the end from mine, what stuff we got to keep.
Okay.
We never talked about we didn't have enough or whatever. It was enough for everybody. And I had to think about that. Why am I just seeing that growing up from my grandma? My mom's very much the caretaker, particularly as a nurse. And just this different level of, this is the place where you live. Take care of your home. You take care of your community. That's just what it's no when you don't have to be convinced about that.
Right.
Once we as a family moved here in DeSoto, I was observing there were a lot of people that looked more like Becky here that looked like me. And I would do, okay, so what's the look here? What is it saying that's okay, And I started to the meeting, paying attention to Thelma Clarity. Oh, okay, there's an African American female on the city council. That's great. I started watching the decisions that they were making. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I probably wouldn't have done that. And then there was a particular election where absolutely no one put their name in the hat.
Really?
And I'm confused with that.
Okay.
No one put their name there, nor the council positions that were open. And I was like, okay. So I'm not in agreement with some of the things. Okay. And so that kind of started my journey. Like, I wish I could be on council, but because I was homeschooling, it was like, no, I don't want to, divert my attention. So she gave me a T-shirt, right for Congress. And I was like, well, it's about this big now. Like, I don't get it. But anyway, needless to say, she recognized that I had a heart for serving in the community. And then as time went on, I started for this, that, the other, got the attention of, spoke with, my council member at the time was Denise Valentine.
Yeah.
And she put me on one of the different boards. And so I appreciated that.
Yeah.
It was the Charter Review Board.
Okay.
And so did a lot of different things here in the city, a lot of things where they took advantage of every single thing under the sun. But at the end of the day, there was just this burning desire to create this city that my kids would want to come back to. And so as they started to get older,
right.
that drumbeat just continued on.
Yeah.
And I ran in 2013, I lost.
Okay.
And I ran again in 2018. Now, that one I got a birdie, like Mayor McCowan, gave me a call to give me a heads up of events that had happened.
Yeah.
And if I was interested, you might want to start coming to the council meeting or not just watching them. And so that was the 2018 run. One of the council member at the time, she decided to step down to run for a state role.
Okay.
And so that created an opening for an unexpired term. And so the difference between the second run and the first run, when I'm listening to all the people, the popular people, the powers that be that say, go here, do this, that, and I did all those things. The second time, okay, was really my campaign manager, like, oh, I go. And I dug into the city in a different kind of way that I did not the first time. I did a lot of door knocking.
Yeah.
This time I wish that I, didn't know were doors, in communities that,
wow.
That I didn't see. And so at that time I started to see another DeSoto that I have. This is my street, this home, and this is, some of the things in the directions I have, which was limited. But at that time, going door to door and digging into the community was like really incredible because I started seeing like, okay, I have an image of what I know DeSoto to be, but there's a reality of what it is.
Oh, yeah.
And then really listening. Yes. And then listening to folks, not just the people who are already in various roles, but listening to the people who were on the ground, again, people who will come, the stuff in my granddaddy's truck. And it's been an interesting journey. That particular race I won by 5 votes.
Okay. It
was a quick and hard race. People didn't know me. And so, a big part there was, Lord, let them know me by your spirit.
Sure.
And had a series of encounters with different individuals that way. And I was like, okay, wow, God, okay. My name to places that I don't even know. And he did. And different people in different groups will come to me and let me know, hey, we had your car, we raised it up and said, is this person for the community or for themselves? Is this person for the community themselves? And so to hear that from some of the most divergent people that I probably never would have had a dinner with.
Yeah.
To hear that from them was like very affirming.
Yeah.
And so as it relates to civic engagement and duty and all of those things, once the opportunity came, I took the opportunity. But what led up to that was, from seeing all the things that needed to change in Dallas and hearing all the conversations to moving here, observing and seeing and wishing, all of that, and then listening to people and talking and hearing, all of that became the foundation of, okay, so this is what I wanted in a council member. So let me be who it is that I want to have as my council member and be that for people.
That's such an interesting point that you just made. And the reason being is that, and I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago about this. I want to get your perspective on it, okay? So leadership versus representation. Because I think that people really have I'm not going to say a bad idea or maybe an incorrect idea of leadership, but leadership is something that and there are parameters, strong, hard parameters that you have to abide by. Okay, and the decisions are generally not questioned. Representation, I believe, that's when you take the voice of the collective, you push it forward. Okay, I remember when I was deciding to run, and because my dad, he told me that there's a difference between being a leader and being a representative, and you got to know when to lead, when to represent, and when to sit back and listen. Okay, and so. I had the same experience going out into the community and hearing the different voices, and it hits you different. That first time that you're in the community, you hear people really voice concerns, and you hear the passion behind it. You hear them, and sometimes the joy and influence that they have for the city. But it's just a matter of hearing voices. So I just want to ask you, before you ran or before you were elected, did you have a different view of leadership versus representation? Was it different once you were elected and then you were on the dais?
That's a great question. Did I have okay. I don't know that I thought of it, but I'll describe it in this way.
Okay.
What I wanted, and I knew in places where I felt like I was not heard.
Okay.
And so, when you're dealing with people's money, other people's money, that's the tall order.
Yeah.
That's a great responsibility.
Absolutely.
And so making here, you are the representative who they did choose to represent them to lead the area of what they have told you they wanted to do.
Right.
So there's an interesting concept that I hear a lot in terms of making tough decisions, and making those the best decision for the whole community. So I hear people say that often, but sometimes that really is cloaked in the depths of your heart of what you want to do and making that hard decision versus what has to be said.
Yeah.
So that's the hard decision.
Yeah.
And then it might be because you know something differently or you know more information than the community that is giving you this guidance and direction.
Yeah.
It might be having a courageous conversation with the community to bring them to you are so that they can understand and then use that same information to make that decision, and then you carry that forward. That's very different. That's very different. And so, role of an elected, I think that's the part that's for some is not a priority. And when we have those experiences, it gets uncomfortable, it gets difficult. And so then it's the continuous, and it's not really a fight, then it transitions into what can collaboration look like?
Right.
What can the conversation look like? How can we have a better conversation around this to get there? Or are you going to be the one who's a bully pulpit your will onto the whole group as a whole? So there's a leader of a affinity group, I'll say, that I'm a part of. I have watched this organization from virtually few partners to over 300, and having an impact relates to the state and relates as it relates to a collective voice. And the most profound thing that I heard him say was he doesn't want to move forward if he doesn't get a consensus. That's profound from the perspective of this. The inference wasn't just go along to get along and just say yes just to say yes. But let's actually wrestle with this. Let's break it down and understand what it is that you favor, you don't favor, what it is you favor, don't favor. And let's work this thing out till we get to a policy that works for us as a collective.
See, that's leadership. No, I feel as though that's leadership because you take a collective conversation, and you build it out, till you get to a point where everyone has their hand next to the fire. There's a collective sacrifice, and everyone, they have something in the fire. Then you have something that's actionable, because even if I can't go out and get exactly what because I have a portion of, I push it. Same thing, if you came to the table and I know for a fact that you gave up something that was very, very important for you, but at the something that you wanted, all right, we can move that forward. And I just believe that therein lies the difference between leadership and representation, because you represent the ideal, you represent the voice, but then you have to lead either yourself, maybe a group, maybe a conversation to get to that agreement. That is very profound. Wow. So this takes me to something that I'm excited to talk about, because You're no longer on the council, but I know for a fact that you have ideals about how the city can move forward and flourish. And I know you are a champion for community. You're a champion for collective conversations. But at the same time, I know that there are some things that we as a city can do better. Neighbors and citizens can do better. City council leadership, elected, non-elected officials, they can do better. So I want to talk about, some of those ideas. No longer being a council person. I know the experiences, it's something that you take with your lifetime. Okay. The things you learn. I know that the person you were before you ran, and before you were elected, before you served, totally different than the person you are today. I know that you are a person who lives by faith. And I always believe, I've been working on this concept that the only true blessing, real blessing, concrete blessing that we have is grace. And that grace comes because of our faith. So as you are now traversing through this post-council person's journey, what do you see as some of, let me, I guess, ask it this way, okay? What are some things that concern you about the city? Because I playfully call you Citizen Raphiel, because I for so long called you Councilwoman Raphiel. Never called you by your first name. Oh no, you noticed that. Never,
I noticed.
But there's a level of respect here. But as a citizen now, what do you see about the city? Things that you love and things that you're concerned about?
Well, I'll say over the past 7 years, we collectively have done a lot of good work as it relates to the city, as it relates to policies that weren't there, that are now there. We have done some good work. But, a city, just like any organization, organism, entity, human, it's a work in progress, right? Things change, things age, all those things.
Right.
And so, I still say DeSoto's best asset are the people.
Right.
Just hands down. In the neighborhood that I'm sitting in right now, like, wow, it's some serious power that's here, And so I think the best thing that we can do as a city is just harness that power. There are opportunities for citizens to get involved, to help the city along, to help the city get better in the different boards and commissions.
Right.
And so I would say in terms of of that piece is, we got a lot, everybody has a lot going on. And, if a tenth of who's here, who is here. And when I say who's who in their respective fields, who are experts in those respective fields, who can lend, just a tenth of their knowledge to the city. I think, that would take us farther, faster.
Yeah.
It just would.
Yeah.
And so as a collective body, no one individual, can, has it all right. It's the collective. It's always the collective, right? So just in terms of some things that, I like in the city, it is the people. It just really is. It's a small community. It's a knitted community, and it's a fitted community. What I do think the city will need to continue to do is to different people move in and move out, things like that, learn how to continue to listen. Yeah. Because listening yesterday may look a little bit different tomorrow. Yeah. Did I say yesterday? Today. Yesterday and today.
Yeah. It's late in today.
And so I think that it's going to be that, don't be afraid of voices that don't sound like yours.
Yes.
That may be in opposition to anything, because that opposition means they care about something. Yeah. And so how can we fit these two things together? Right. How can we communicate differently so that this person understands where we're going? Yeah. So I think that, all cities, all municipal governments can do, and federal government, state government could do a better job in communication and what that looks like. And so that would be a thing that I would want to happen. Everything else, it falls into that bucket, because that communication piece, because it does happen, and to have it work better, then the potholes will feel a little bit differently. the water bill increases communicated a little bit differently. And it might be, your water usage, changes because you had a courageous conversation on what usage looks like.
Right.
And then just in terms of opportunities, I think as our community age, there are things that we need to start to think about.
Yeah.
While we're 70 plus years, nearly 75 years old, we're that seems old, but kind of young city.
Yeah.
As we now age, so we've had our different iterations of the city,
Right.
come to fruition, grow, older homes. We need to start thinking about preservation and communicating about preservation.
Yeah.
So in my vocation, I enjoy what I do in my vocation. I work for a nonprofit ministry.
Yeah.
And part of what I do is community development.
Right.
And so in doing that work inside of, a bigger city, they have preservation type programs, so it may be more educational preservation and things like that. Because, when we drive down an alleyway, you see, okay, how come they won't fix their fence and things like that? But I think it also lends itself to the community, a different kind of engagement in the community because, the person's fence, like there's this one person's fence on a major road here in the city that was down, but did anybody go ask, what's going on? Because could they have lost, someone in the family?
Yeah.
Maybe they're down on hard times. Yeah. Can we come together to do something?
Yeah.
Or is there any program that, the budget will allow to do that? It may not, it may or may not, but a different kind of conversation needs to start to happen.
Yeah.
And so that we take care of what we have.
Right.
I do think that is important. And then as we transition into, the limited available space that is, new people, when they move into the community, they look a little bit different. They just do.
Yeah.
So their likes are a little bit different, developments, taste change, things like that.
Yeah.
So then it's a courageous conversation. I don't think things should just change for the sake of change.
Right.
But I think you can have a conversation with the community and we all can get to the same place that we need to be to progress the city,
right,
and to be inviting to new people coming in.
Yeah.
So that's a different kind of conversation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a lot more I can say, but I don't want any tiki torches thrown at me. So, but yeah.
I think that's a good transitional point because I always like to end these podcasts talking about this or that. And when I was in college, there was this song, you can get with this, you can get with it. It just stuck with me because the track, we had our steps timed to it. They had to listen to it so much.
Okay, I want to see it. Okay.
Yeah, see me break down, fall out. But so I know with the city, we have to move forward. And sometimes it does boil down to something as simple as you can get with this, or you can get with that, because this is where it's at. And if you stay in the past and you keep doing things the way you've been doing things, you'll wake up one day and the rest of the world has moved on, and you're trying to hold on to some dust.
That 1972 lamp.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's yellow.
Absolutely. So you get my energy here. So I think that at some point, and I think this will happen with the city, I think that the old guard will release their hold.
They will, but let me say this. I'm gonna go back just a little bit.
Okay.
So just in terms of opportunities, because I didn't say that. You said, what are you doing? That. So I'll say it this way. DeSoto is a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a huge opportunity for young folks to, like, whatever your thing is, you can literally do it here.
That's true.
You can literally write the book here because there are a lot of things that are not done.
Right.
But when it comes to development, so I get to meet all these really cool, small scale developers, but so it might be attracting those type of developers to come in and, so this old shopping strip that it doesn't have the love that it needs. The landlord is not good or whatever. When it comes up for sale, if we have those people here in our community, let's encourage them let's redevelop our own city.
Right.
If it's the city has the franchise piece. If it's that, then, can you be the one to bring us the next best restaurant that everybody says they want right now?
Right.
Can it be you? So the best opportunity we have here, for the people who live here is to build the capacity we already have.
Right.
We have it. Let's build on it.
Yep.
So for me, from a community development standpoint, so I talked about preservation, but then, revitalization.
Right.
Is that. So for the young people voices who want to run to the farmers market in Dallas or, go live in places like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, did you know that you could get that loan to put that fiveplex in here? And there are some things that can be done. So it's kind of let's get out of our suburban box, and start thinking about like, what do we do? Because when you go into other different communities that, I don't want to give it an adjective, but in some other communities, you'll see properties turn and turn and turn.
Yeah.
That building that was once, Fish and Hook is now a 5-story.
Right.
It's now this and it's now that. And so those are the opportunities that I think we should start thinking about. Like, while it may be aging old, don't think of it as a relic in that place.
Yeah.
There are opportunities for people to come and redevelop and do something new, to do something different. We can do that.
Yeah.
But we can have the conversations.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do things just to do things, but let's have a conversation with the community.
Yeah.
Because I believe we have the capital here. We have the ingenuity here. We have the people here. We have everything that we need to create this thing that we want to create in our city.
Absolutely.
It's just that, okay, how do we do it better? Don't be afraid that you may think getting a permit is hard, or you've heard that things have been hard in the city. Get to know, your city officials, get to know the staff and things like that. What can be better?
Right.
For that engineer, that systems engineer, who sees holes, problems, and issues. Okay, like, did you know we needed your help? So for me, it's just those kinds of things that you want to have in a neighborhood, in a city, we're a city of 50 plus, in which we're not technically small, but compared to Dallas, we're small.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so those things can happen. So if you want your barbershop, your new dessert shop, building that building, these things, let's do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, let's build the capacity. Let's make certain that people who are here in the city, have the knowledge and the information, so they can go forward with wisdom. So that's involving all the partners who's supposed to be a part of that, which are the banks, which is our our Economic Development Corporation, which are those other nonprofits that help build that capacity and community.
Right.
So we can do that. Okay, now this or that. Now what?
Okay, this or that. All right. Let's start here. So roller skates or bowling?
Roller skates.
Okay. Hip hop or R&B?
Hip hop.
Okay.
Christian hip hop.
Christian hip hop. Oh, so you didn't have an opinion on the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef battle?
I did.
You did?
I did have an opinion.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Who was?
Kendrick, of course.
Oh, okay. Another Raphael Sadiq story, okay, produced one of Kendrick's earlier songs.
Okay.
And he said that Kendrick reminded him of his sister, of Raphael Sadiq's sister. When she would sing, her eyes would roll to the back of her head. So, and when he did his first studio session, this is after his sister had passed away. He was playing some music, laying down some beats and stuff. And Kendrick was rapping, and he looked back, and his eyes were rolling back in his head, and it just stopped him in his tracks. And it was just one of those profound moments. And so I was like, wow. Okay, so going back to this.
Okay.
This is really not a this or that. A favorite place. Do you have a place?
I don't know that I have a favorite place. I have a place I desire to go.
Okay.
So I desire to have a second home in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hot.
Yeah, it's hot here too.
Yeah, that's true. What's South Africa?
I did a missions trip, a few decades ago. A few decades ago. I did a missions trip to Africa. We went to Pretoria, and I was in the townships and just fell in love with it.
Okay.
It has a very interesting, complicated history.
Yeah. With
apartheid and all the various races that are there. But I just fell in love with the people and the place. And for me, when I went there, I saw a lot of fences, and I never noticed when I came back, wow, I see those same fences in places. For instance, in the front yard versus the backyard. So anyway, but I just fell in love with South Africa.
Cool. Okay.
Second home. That'll be the retirement. So home here, home there, just letting you know. Yep.
Well, once I go to Barcelona, I'm not coming back.
You're not coming back? Okay. Yeah, well, a lot of things going on right now. So yeah.
That's true.
One foot in, one foot out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay.
Unless the rapture happens. Okay.
Barbecue or cookout?
Barbecue.
Okay. Isley Brothers or Barcade?
Barcades.
Okay. All right. Okay. Last one. Lasagna or spaghetti?
Lasagna.
That's lasagna. Now, I know you said that Prince was like your soundtrack.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about Michael Jackson?
Jackson too. It was not either or. It was both and.
Okay.
It was Jackson 5s. Okay, so Michael Jackson, Jackson 5,
Right,
Michael Jackson,
right.
you know,
I
three
got
different
you.
ones.
I got you.
And so actually today I'm enjoying some of Michael's songs that I didn't really listen to.
Really?
Yeah. So like
Okay.
Butterflies and
Oh,
some of his recent albums that just really didn't move.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it was both and.
Okay.
Michael and Prince.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you so
You're
much for
welcome.
joining me. I know it's not easy to sit down and talk with lights on you and cameras and all this other stuff going, but thank you again. I really appreciate that. I think that the insight that you have about the city and with your background, and just the mere fact that you took the time out to educate your kids and to provide them with something that not a lot of kids have an opportunity to get. I think that in and of itself speaks to your character. So thank you again.
You're
To
welcome.
the Honorable Nicole Raphiel.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Cool.
Yes.
Beyond the surface, something innovative, original, revolutionary, and new forever, transforming lives, revolutionizing, listening and being heard, sowing the good. Root of resistance, strong and deep, it will unite us, a people, a fruitful fight, like a tree with many branches, but one root in our endeavors. Strong root, power of the sun, strong root, everything we need.